So we officially have brand new information about the world of the unemployment lawsuits. Hey everyone, how's it going today? And welcome back to another update. So I know that right now at this time, there are a lot of people all over the country that are still currently waiting decisions about whatever happened to the lawsuits in their particular state. So I do maybe want to make a really quick insert notice is that the real story, what really ended up happening is that we really have just been genuinely waiting. And because a lot of states have actually just genuinely been really slow when it comes to just trying to release information. Now, the good news is that we finally do have information to share in today's update. A huge heads up is that I don't have information about every single state. However, if we don't get to your state, we will try to get to as many as we can. But if we don't get to your state, it's probably the reasoning is because we're still just waiting for information in that particular state. Now, with that being said, I do still think it could be relatively insightful to maybe watch through, because it's a great idea to be able to kind of just gauge what's been happening into a lot of the other states as well. Of course, hopefully we do get to your particular state, but even then, if anything, I think it is still relatively insightful because it kind of lets us know that whatever happens to a lot of the other states is potential about what can potentially happen to our particular state. At the end of the day, we love every single state all across the country, all the way from the West Coast to the East Coast to Hawaii to Alaska to the South to, of course, the North. But it's just currently what's really literally been happening. So with that being said, is that if you need a really quick, maybe just background story to what's been happening for anyone that's brand new here, is that ever since the unemployment programs ended early, there were many states that essentially opened up a brand new lawsuit. They're trying to sue the governors of their particular state in order to try to fight, in order to try to bring back the unemployment program. Some states, specifically 2 states, which we will share, have actually been relatively successful and confirmed, and other states are kind of just still figuring things out. But we're going to get to all of those details in today's update. So we're going to get started right away, but as always, maybe real fast before we begin, same exact story as always, consider smashing the like button if you guys enjoy videos like this. It's always greatly appreciated, or you guys can decide at the very end, consider subscribing and hitting the bell for similar videos like this. And as always, feel free to comment any questions, personal thoughts, or honestly, also as always, any particular information that you might have about your particular state as well, because I think a lot of other people in your state would probably also really appreciate it, especially because right now at this time, a lot of the information is actually a pretty huge, massive treasure hunt to try to find, because it's very on a very low-key downscale level, but we're going to be trying our best. So with that being said, let's get this video started. So maybe just to start with a very quick recap, just for anyone that happens to be brand new here, and because it only takes 15 seconds, is that right now at this current time, the 16 states that have or had some kind of lawsuit open at some point in time in order to try to fight to bring back unemployment are going to be in the states of Indiana, Maryland, Oklahoma, Texas, Florida, Ohio, Arkansas, South Carolina, Tennessee, Louisiana, West Virginia, Missouri, Alabama, Iowa, New Hampshire, and Arizona. The 2 states that have officially won their lawsuit and have actually confirmed by people there that they've received back payments for payments that have been owed is pretty much going to be in Indiana and Maryland. So very huge congrats to those 2 states. People there have officially confirmed that they've received some back payment for anything that has been owed. So that is the really great news. So the first state that we're really going to start with is really going to be in Arizona. So Arizona's situation right now is pretty much just the straightforward answer, is that they have not come to any kind of decision, but the great news is that the lawyers have already officially spoken out that what's going to be happening is that the judge specifically in Maricopa County, hopefully I pronounced that right, I'm from New York, so, hopefully there's that. But essentially, the judge that represents that particular county, he essentially has announced that he will be releasing information soon about the actual final decisions about whether they're able to bring back unemployment. The lawsuit was filed against Governor Doug Ducey, who is the governor over there, and right now is that they've pretty much just announced is that the decision is going to hopefully be coming relatively soon. They just don't know yet, but they've announced that it is, and that's the big thing. And this is actually the same exact update that's really going to be happening also in Ohio. So Ohio did recently release information to announce that what really ended up happening is that, as most of you guys know, is the background story there is that they filed a lawsuit. They sadly did not win their lawsuit. They filed an appeal. They gratefully, I think, actually did win their appeal. But then what ended up happening is that the governor stopped their appeal. So they essentially appealed the appeal, and then it ended up kind of in like a little bit of a pause situation. And I believe is that right now at this time, they're going to be now coming out with information relatively soon about the actual final decision. So the decision is that they're waiting for a decision. And that really is just what's going on right now. And then the next state that I'm really going to be talking about, and this is the one that I think actually does have a lot of information that we finally do have released, and it is going to be in the state of Florida. This is the state that I think is probably really interesting to maybe hear out their story, even if you are not in Florida, just because they have a very interesting situation. So what's happening right now in Florida is that as of just a couple of days ago from release date, if you're watching this on release date or just any, time around then, is that the really, really great news is that the lawsuit in the case in Florida is still alive, and that is the really, really great news. Over there right now, essentially, there are 3 specific lawyers slash law firms that are taking on the case. So they have actually a lot of attempts. They've already made a lot of attempts. The names of the specific lawyer is, hopefully I pronounced her name right, but Gaudier Kitchen, Mary Maytox. Mary Maytox is probably the most famous lawyer of the lawyers that are representing the case there, and Scott Bayren. And most of these cases is being led by someone named Vanessa Brito. She is pretty much the person that led the lawsuit in general. So she's essentially the leading figure who really put together the entire lawsuit in general, just to try to create that movement in order to try to fight back and bring back the unemployment program. So what really ended up happening in Florida is that they have a very particular interesting situation. They filed their lawsuit. Sadly, they did not win their lawsuit. They contemplated on filing an appeal, and what turns out now is that they've officially have, and I guess this is the brand new information, is that what they really ended up deciding to do is that they will no longer actually be filing an appeal at this time. But the real reason why they really ended up making that decision was because they felt, and by they we specifically mean Vanessa Brito and a lot of the lawyers who talked it out together, they just really ended up feeling that if they tried to file an appeal, because it's probably going to end up ultimately going into the same judge anyway, it's going to just lead to almost the same exact outcome, that they ended up just feeling like it maybe was not worth the most efficient use of money in order to create the appeal. So what they're really doing right now is that now that they've officially have the lawsuit that's still very, very much open, the sad news is that they didn't win the injunction. So it's not that they didn't win the lawsuit, but what happens is that when you typically file the lawsuit, what goes on is that first, and I know this is going to be a little bit confusing, so we're going to try our best to really explain it as best as we possibly can. When you typically open up a lawsuit, one of the first steps is that you want to try to get an injunction, which is basically a way that you can try to continue claiming the funds until they physically settle the case. This is something that Indiana was thankfully actually able to successfully accomplish. So what happened in Florida is that they sadly were not able to win the injunction. And then what happened is that they ended up trying to debate on filing an appeal. They ended up foregoing and deciding not to file the appeal because of the reasons that I ended up just stating. So what they're really hoping to do now is that they want to try to prolong the time and try to see if they can potentially take this case, but bring it into a different judge so that a different judge can now try to make a brand new decision to see what ends up happening there. The true answer is that there really hasn't been as much movement except talk. There's been a lot of talks, so I guess that is still something, because there's a lot of other states that have actually truly been like silent, but we haven't actually had a physical hearing that has actually physically taken place there in probably about a month right now. The other big update that they really also recently ended up releasing is also a little bit about the financial side to why they ended up making this decision, is also because during that time period when they were trying to compile and raise up money to physically do the lawsuit, they were essentially able to raise up specifically about $30,000. And after the past hearings that have already happened between the 3 different lawsuits, so they've already made a lot of attempts with 3 different law firms, and they've officially spent, I believe they've reported that they've spent about $27,000 so far in this lawsuit. So because of that reason, they realize that right now at this time, they really only have, or just simply put, they have $3,000 left that they can spend. I believe that at this time, because it is something where unemployment sadly has already ended as of 2 months ago, they don't plan to raise up any more money. And I think it's also especially true because they don't know if there's any particular certainty that it's going to be able to go through. But that's pretty much the story of what's happening there. Essentially, it's that they've already spent $27,000 of their $30,000 funds. They have $3,000 left. They want to try to take the remaining $3,000, maybe do one final hearing, or just to try to really figure out what they want to do with it. But one of the biggest focuses is that if they were to try to do something, they want to change up the actual judge or the person that is going to be in power, because otherwise they just feel like it's just going to come back as almost the same exact decision. And the decision, if there's anyone that you want to just maybe just point, I don't know whether this is like pointing fingers or to look at, or who was physically in charge of just denying all of this stuff. It was essentially the judge in Leon County in Florida. Specifically, I believe that the judge's name is Lane Smith. So if you need someone to maybe blame, not to say you should or should not blame, but Lane Smith, that is the name of the judge that made the decision for everything that's responsible that's happening there right now. So hopefully that maybe painted a little bit of a picture of what's been going on there. I know if it was a little bit difficult to understand, it was also a little bit difficult to explain because it's a little bit of a complicated situation there right now, but it's really just the best that we really have to work with right now. But hopefully it's at least something to kind of know for, just for at least right now at this current time. We will definitely share more information if more comes out. Feel free to share more information if you guys have anything in particular as well. Beyond this is that that's what I really just wanted to share in today's update. So if you guys found that relatively insightful, or hopefully maybe just in any way, shape, or form, consider smashing the like button if you guys haven't done so. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell for more information if they do come out. And as always, feel free to comment any questions, personal thoughts about also just really anything. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well, and also happy early Thanksgiving.